Hello, happy Thursday. We are back with my Thursday afternoon Facebook Lives. I am so happy to be joining you guys today. It's another Thursday. So we're going to talk about fat today and the huge misconceptions surrounding fat. If you have been following me for a while or have read any of my books, Chill Out and Get Healthy is my first book. Yes, You Can Get Pregnant is my second book. And Body Belief is my third book. That'll be out in early 2018. You know that I recommend and love for all of my clients to eat a good amount of healthy fats. And I often get pushback from clients about eating as much fat as I recommend. It's typically about 40% of your daily intake should be fat. 30 to 40% is usually what I recommend. And people are scared of a few things. They're scared that they're going to gain weight. They're scared that their cholesterol is going to go up, that their arteries are going to get clogged, all the reasons that we've been taught to be afraid of fat, which have all been discounted, by the way. I'm not the first one to talk about this. I mean, Mark Hyman just put out a great book, Eat Fat, Get Thin, I think, and he's a doctor and has done a ton of research and published a ton of research in his book, completely discounting the fat and cholesterol hypothesis, the fat and weight hypothesis, the fat and poor health, basically, outcomes, that they're not correlated at all. So most people that I work with as well, I typically will say I want you to be eating, about 40% fat, about 40% protein, and 20%, of carbohydrates in your diet. And that to me is the optimal health diet. You can increase the protein if you want to get even leaner, but fat will not make you fat. And this misconception started with, I guess, because fat calories are technically more than carbohydrate calories or protein calories, right? But the body utilizes them differently. And one thing to know that we know of now, too, in nutrition is that a calorie is not a calorie. So the calories that you get from, say 4 ounces of orange juice are not the same as the calories you get from, a slab of butter. So they're very different. Your body utilizes them very differently. So it's more about, the nutrition in that calorie that affects your body and how it affects your body. And so what I've seen, sorry, there was something on my phone that bothered me. What I see clinically, what I see, what is this? What did I just do? Okay. Sorry, hi. I just hit something on my phone. What I see clinically is that when people increase their fat content, they actually lose weight or lean down. But they feel better. They feel more satiated after every meal. Their cognition is clearer. Their hair, their skin, their nails are healthier. Their joints feel healthier. They don't crave sweets after every meal. Their energy sustains throughout the day. They just feel more alive and alert because fat is an imperative substance to our function. We are basically the human body is made up of protein, fat, and water. So what I always say is that's all you should be eating. I've been reading your books, following your program, and eating my good fats, and have lost weight and feel amazing. Yay, Julie, thank you. That's wonderful feedback. Yes, everybody says the same thing. And sometimes when I first change up someone's diet, they might gain a couple pounds, but it's just as the body gets used to it, but then it usually regulates itself right out. What makes us fat is sugar. White flour, I did my Facebook Live last week on sugar and how to avoid it, and if you have an addiction. So go back and watch that if you want to understand more about sugar. But basically, grains and the white flours and sugars, added sugars in our diet are what make us gain weight and what causes all of the diseases that exist right now. Every disease that's out there is due to inflammation in the body, and the body being too acidic or not alkaline enough. But really, inflammation and sugar, white flour, grains, certain carbohydrates, they all cause a spike in inflammation. And if we don't have enough healthy fat in our diet, then that can't negate the inflammatory response, right? Fat really helps kind of I look at it as it's very soothing to the body, it's very nourishing to the tissues, and it gives your body all of the nutrition it needs. Yes, does it help with women who suffer with PCOS? Absolutely. So women with PCOS should basically just eat protein and fat. You should be as low on carbohydrates as possible. I tend to usually go completely grain-free and typically fruit-free with my PCOS girls. And you need to be eating upwards of like 80 to 100 grams of protein a day, and then getting healthy fats in there and some green vegetables, and that's basically your diet. So no grains at all, and the high fat and the high protein will really help shift. And that's the same for diabetes, because PCOS and diabetes are the same. So for insulin resistance, people on high fat diets, their insulin goes right down. People with high cholesterol, when they increase their fat, cholesterol goes right down. People with chronic inflammatory illnesses, the more fat you eat, the better your recovery. Even cancer patients, right, their diet should basically just be protein and fat and very little anything else, and just maybe some green veggies. But fat sustains life. And so, and then if you're trying to get pregnant, I always quote, his name is Dr. Cowan, Thomas Cowan. He wrote the book, The Fourfold Path to Healing, and he's a someone I look up to and have learned from a ton. And he says if you want to create a structure or another human life, you need to basically eat protein, fat, and water, because that's what we're made up of. And the general population is just not eating enough fat at all. So my typical recommendations are about 4 tablespoons a day of a healthy fat. So ideally that's grass-fed butter, if you tolerate dairy well. If not, do ghee, grass-fed ghee, which is clarified butter, and it's dairy-free. The brand Pure Indian actually tests to make sure theirs is dairy-free, so that's a great brand if you have a dairy issue. Coconut oil, avocado, nuts, seeds. Those are some of your best sources of a good healthy fat. So I typically recommend you're cooking with coconut oil or ghee, and then you're eating like 1 to 2 handfuls of nuts or seeds a day, and that's a great way to get in the healthy fats. If I really want someone to amp up their fat intake, I'll have them do a whole avocado a day. So you're finding ways to get avocados in, or at the very least a half of an avocado. And another awesome source of fat and protein, which is my favorite, is bone broth. And you guys have been following me for a while, you know I'm a huge fan of bone broth, but I love broth because it's basically protein and fat. And that's what we need to optimize function. So what we need to do is remove sugar, white flour, grains for the most part, and basically just eat lots of fat and protein in our diet, and we will see a complete transformation in your health, and you will not gain weight from it. So there's also been some studies that show that people who eat more fat actually burn more calories every day. It's like about 300 calories more a day that you burn with the more fat you eat. So same exact lifestyle, same exact workouts. People who eat more fat actually burn more calories as they're just sitting around doing, the sedentary lifestyle type of thing. And the real key is to understand, and the other two studies that they showed, insulin resistance went down. So people with diabetes or PCOS or any kind of insulin or even pre-diabetes, that their insulin levels completely regulated when they increase their fat intake, and that cholesterol goes down as well when you increase your fat intake. But the key is it's got to be really good quality fat. So I am not talking about margarine by any means, because it's not a good quality fat. I'm not talking about like oils from corn or soy, things like that. We want it to be a good quality fat, like coconut oil, like ghee, like avocado, like nuts, seeds, broth. So sorry, a call just came in and it made my phone delay. Those are good quality fats, and that's what you need to be getting in every day. And so the other area where we can get good quality fats is from animal protein. And so pastured eggs, you can have 2 of those a day. Again, will not increase cholesterol one bit. And yeah, lard from pastured pork, awesome source of fat. I have lard in the fridge and cook with it regularly. I don't think everybody's familiar with it, so I didn't throw it in the mix. But absolutely, lard is amazing. Even keeping the bacon fat, I keep the bacon fat, and I clean my skillets with the bacon fat, but I'll also cook in bacon fat. I saute all my vegetables either in ghee or in lard, which is that's the other thing too. When you cook your vegetables, you need to cook them with the fat, not to steam them. When you cook them with the fat, you get so much more nutrition out of them. So, this whole mindset that we are that we need to avoid fat is again misinformation and not helpful at all for our health. And we're missing it, And so if you're that person that has like dry skin, achy joints, fatigue, you get that afternoon crash, your hair is just kind of like limp and brittle, your nails peel, what else? You tend to gain weight easily. Chances are you're not eating enough fat in your diet. And so if you want to really amp up your health and your lifestyle, you decrease the carbohydrates and increase the fat content. Okay, I'm allergic to coconut and my son is allergic to dairy, so no butter. Any suggestions? I would use ghee. Like I said, that Pure Indian brand, ghee is clarified butter, which means they remove the dairy proteins. But not all ghee can be guaranteed to be dairy-free, but Pure Indian, the brand Pure Indian ghee, they actually test their ghee and it's completely dairy-free, so that's a really safe thing for you to use. The other thing is to use lard, because lard is just rendered fat from pork or from typical animals, but typically it's from pork. But that's one of the best things then to cook with. If you're afraid of the ghee, which I would understand if your son has a serious allergy, I could see how you wouldn't even want to go near it. Then I would do lard and give that a shot, and then you can do. You can also make sure you're getting avocado in and nuts and seeds. You can use nut butters, seed butters, things like that to also beef up your fat during the day. And then eggs are amazing. So I was getting to pastured animal products. So pastured and grass-fed animal products are also another amazing source of really good quality fat. And so you want to get in, at least 2 eggs a day is my recommendation, at the very minimum 1, and you better be eating that yolk. The yolk is the best and the most important part of the egg. So if you're just eating the whites, it's just kind of useless. And then getting in, I usually say like 6 to 8 servings of meat a week, and a serving is the size of your palm, about 3 ounces. It's another great source of good quality fat. You want to get good quality fish in, fatty fish like salmon, any like sea bass, that kind of thing where there's some good healthy omega-3 fats in there. Halibut, cod, as wild caught and, non-farmed raised as you can with your fish. I also recommend a daily dose of omega-3 fatty acids, about a teaspoon a day. I take cod liver oil personally, and that's what I tend to recommend to everybody because of the fat-soluble vitamins in the cod liver oil, which is vitamin A and vitamin D. And so how much fat per meal? I mean, I guess you could shoot for like 1 tablespoon to 1.5 tablespoons per meal is a good guesstimation of fat. But like I said, it should be about 40% of your daily caloric intake should be fat. So, I think a good way, so this morning I basically had a handful of sesame seeds and then had coffee with coconut cream in it, which is very high fat, probably about a tablespoon of coconut cream. I eat a lot of fat. And then I just had 2 eggs cooked in ghee. And so already, I've probably gotten in my daily share of fat, but that's an idea. And then later on, I'll, whatever I cook, I always cook in ghee or lard. And I always have protein and fat with every meal and then some kind of vegetable. And I really limit the grains across the board. Regarding sugar, I'm looking at my organic coconut water. It says at 11 grams of sugar. Is that okay? If it's added sugar, it's not okay. You have to check and make sure, did they add sugar to it, or is that naturally occurring sugar in there? Because if it's naturally occurring, it's very different. Your body utilizes it differently. But again, I typically recommend staying below 10 grams of added sugar a day. So 11 would be just on the cusp of that. So, keeping in mind that like fat comes in many forms, and, I don't think you can overdo it. Sometimes when you switch from lower carb, go to lower carb to higher fat, your digestion might slow down a little bit. And if you haven't been eating a lot of fat and you want to try to increase it, just slowly increase it. Don't go right to like the 4 tablespoons a day like I recommend. Maybe start at 2 and then slowly increase. Another thing to keep in mind, if you do dairy and you digest it well, dairy should always be full fat. Always, always, always. Even organic, low fat or non-fat dairy is processed and synthetic. So basically the fat has all of the nutrition in milk, in dairy products. The fat is the reason that dairy can be beneficial at all to our health. And when they defat it, they remove all the fat and then they add some back in. And in that process, you lose all the nutrition in the fat, and it also actually breaks up the fat cells and particles, and it makes it very indigestible for your body. So if you do dairy, it needs to be 100% full fat, organic, preferably non-homogenized as well, because the homogenization of dairy actually breaks up the fat particles and changes your ability to digest them. I find it hard to have a complex carb in each meal. I'm more protein and veggie. Is it okay not to have that carb in each meal of every day? Yeah, I think it's perfectly fine not to have the carbohydrates, and a lot of people do better on low-carb diets. But the key is to make sure that there's fat with every meal. And like I said, vegetables should always be cooked in fat, and that will really help your body absorb them. And that your protein should be cooked in fat as well. So yeah, I think that's perfectly fine. Hi, Megan Kenny. Let's see. So what else? I have some notes here, so I don't get confused. It's been a full morning already. So I guess, basically I'm just talking about fat is not going to make you fat. And I know a lot of people are so worried about that. But if you're struggling with health issues or just not feeling your best, or, and especially if you have like any, dry skin is always to me a huge indicator, like whether it's eczema, psoriasis, or just dry flaky skin, dry peeling nails, dry hair, those little bumps that people get on their skin, you know what I'm talking about? Like if you have them, you know what I'm talking about. It's like these random little bumps. That is totally a sign of fat deficiency. So you need to up your fat. If you're having issues hormonally, and then your hormones are unbalanced, you need to up your fat. Fat carries the fat-soluble vitamins, which are really important for regulating our hormone levels. If we don't get enough fat, hormones just can't be balanced. And if you've been following me because you're trying to get pregnant, you know that fat is the number one thing for your fertility. If you're not eating enough fat, it's really hard to get pregnant, and it's really hard to produce good quality eggs. So, numero uno, if you're trying to get pregnant, you need to be eating lots of fat. Yeah, so Sky says you mentioned eating fat, protein, water. Where do veggies fall into this equation? Yeah, I know. I just kind of say that as like, that, kind of being silly, but because that's what we're made up of. But yes, veggies are really important, and I want like 3 to 4 servings of vegetables a day in your diet that are cooked in fat. So veggies fall into there. What proportion of our diet in comparison to protein should fat be? I think fat should be like 30 to 40%. Protein should be about, it's like 50%, 40 to 50%, and then the carbs, etc., make up the rest of that. So it just really depends. You just kind of play around, see what works for your body, how you feel. But I think fat should at very least be about 30%. And for protein, I think it's easier to gauge. Like, you should be getting at least 80 grams of protein in a day. And some say that upwards of 1 gram of protein per 1 pound of body weight. So that's a lot of protein, and it's a little, it can be challenging to do. But you could do it, and there's great resources online. Just Google like how to get in 80 grams of protein a day, and you'll see. But again, broth is a great way to do that because it's both protein and fat, so you can get both in there. Animal products like meat, eggs, great way to do that. I think there's 6 grams of protein per 1 ounce of grass-fed beef. I think there's 6 or 7 grams of protein per 1 egg. So there's many ways that you can do it, and then when you're eating the animal products, like the broth or the meat, the fish, the eggs, you're getting protein and fat together, which is also really nice for you, and then just adding in the vegetables. So an ideal diet, I think, looks like, you're basically kind of grazing throughout the day. You're waking up, you're having just a small amount of protein to jumpstart your day, and your blood sugar and your metabolism. So like I did like a handful of sesame seeds, and then I made my coffee, and I always have coffee with a really good quality fat. Like I put coconut cream in my coffee because that helps your body absorb it properly. It doesn't affect your cortisol levels the same way. It reduces kind of some of the inflammation from coffee. And then something like 2 eggs cooked in ghee or coconut oil or lard with some spinach. I always add some greens into my eggs, just another good way to get them in. And then you're basically going and you're eating every 2 to 3 hours throughout the day with little bits of protein in between. So then I'll probably snack on some nuts as well, you know, between this meal and my next meal. And then I'll just have like about 3 ounces, like the size of your palm, 3 ounces of protein with some veggies, everything cooked in a good healthy fat. And then same thing, a little snack with some protein, and then dinner as well, same thing. You know, last night I made pork chops, cooked in ghee, and I fried them in my skillet, and sauteed spinach, again cooked in lard. And so that was our meal. I didn't have any grains at all yesterday, and typically we don't. But so I think that's a good idea for how it should look, and then that we're eating, obviously, we're drinking and consuming lots of water throughout the day. And there you have it. I prefer that my body, my body prefers a slightly higher level of carbs to fat and protein for my digestion. If I'm including fat with them, let's see, or sprouted whole quinoa and amaranth breakfast, okay. Yeah, as long, you know, the only thing I think is make sure the grains are sprouted, make sure they're organic, and make sure that there's a fat and a protein with them. I think you'll be fine. And yeah, that's the big thing too, what I preach is I want you to listen to the cues from your body. But just make sure you're not doing more carbs than protein would be my only recommendation. Just make sure that the carbs are still like 30% of your diet, not 50%. Even if they're good quality carbs, even if they're organic. It can just lend to more inflammation in the body, and especially if you're trying to balance your hormones, or just rectify any disease state, that you kind of keep the carbs on the lower side. What brand of coconut cream do you recommend? So I do, let's go organic, or let's do organic. I also I found, yeah, thanks Beth. What's that brand, the coconut milk brand that everybody knows? It's like So Delicious or something like that. But they make a coconut cream. They sell it. It's not in the milk section at all. It's in like the chef or like where the ghee is. And it's literally like a little cardboard box of just coconut cream. And there's very few additives. I think it's just coconut cream and like one other thing. And so I've been using that because it's in a box. It's really easy. I just squeeze it into my coffee in the morning. Okay, so let's see. What is my time? Because I have another session I get on in about a few minutes. So let's see. Let questions keep rolling in if you have them. But basically, remember, a calorie is not a calorie. Fat will not make you fat. And if you want to optimize health and improve any disease state you're dealing with, chances are you're not eating enough fat. So the goal is to go for at least 4 tablespoons of fat a day. Things like coconut oil, ghee, lard, avocado, nuts, seeds, grass-fed butter if you can do dairy, full-fat dairy if you can do dairy, and that we're making sure we're cooking our vegetables in fat. That increases the absorptive capacity of all the nutrition in the vegetables. And yeah, don't be afraid of fat. It's not going to make you gain weight, and it's definitely not going to spike your cholesterol, and it's going to regulate your blood sugar. So if you're walking around just feeling like in a fog and not feeling good, your energy crashes in the middle of the day, again, dry skin issues, dry hair, dry nails, peeling, things like that, you're not getting enough fat in. So up the fat, don't be afraid. Make sure it's good quality fat. Make sure all your animal products are grass-fed, pastured, organic, hormone-free, pesticide-free. You know, do yourself a favor and really avoid the commercially raised animal products. Not only are they inhumanely treated, those poor animals, but they're fed a load of crap that you don't want to eat in your body. Okay, guys, I'm going to sign off. And if you watch this later, just post some questions and, you know, don't forget to eat your fat. So I want your diet to be like 30 to 40% fat, 40 to 50% protein, and then the rest can be vegetables or some carbohydrates, okay? Have a great day. Until next week, I'll see you next week on Thursday at noon, same time, same place. Bye.